The aroma of stale coffee and impending doom hung heavy in the air of my cubicle, a scent I knew well after 35 years in this business. My name's Marcus Riley, but everyone calls me Mac. I'm 62, a walking encyclopedia of corporate screw-ups and public relations nightmares. I started at Sterling and Associates when PR meant schmoozing reporters over 3 martini lunches, not tracking hashtags. My desk, a monument to organized chaos, held a worn leather-bound address book. My black book, a Rolodex for the digital age, filled with contacts earned through decades of whispered secrets, midnight phone calls, and more favors than a consigliere owes. I was the guy you called when the CEO's yacht got caught smuggling endangered parrots, or the new product line suddenly caused spontaneous combustion. I was the corporate crisis fixer, a whisperer of bad news, the guy who found the escape hatch before the fire became an inferno. My philosophy was simple: never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake, as Napoleon Bonaparte supposedly said. I watched a lot of mistakes. The humming of my ancient PC was a comforting counterpoint to the growing sense of unease that had permeated the agency. The new blood had arrived, led by Brittany Sterling, daughter of the firm's founder. Brittany, 30-something, fresh out of Harvard business, smelled of ambition and expensive kombucha. She saw the world through data dashboards and AI-driven metrics. She believed everything could be optimized, automated, and stripped of inefficient human elements. To her, my black book was an anachronism, my gut instincts quaint, my ability to smooth over a scandal with a well-placed phone call unscalable. I watched her strut through the office in designer pantsuits, looking like she was perpetually about to give a TED Talk on disruption. She'd give presentations with slides that looked like abstract art, full of charts and graphs, declaring that the future of PR was predictive analytics and synergistic digital outreach. My cynical inner voice, which often sounded like a grumpy Clint Eastwood, would mutter, "Sure, sweetheart. Try telling a pissed-off Wall Street Journal reporter that your algorithm will get him an exclusive. Asterisk." My job, to me, was an art form, a delicate dance on the knife edge of chaos. It wasn't about data points. It was about human connections, understanding unspoken motivations, sensing the tremor before the earthquake. It was about empathy for the client, the public, and even sometimes, the antagonist. My dream, even at 62, was to keep mastering that art, to keep being the guy they called when all hell broke loose. My fear was obsolescence, becoming a relic in a world moving too fast, the kind of guy who just sits on a porch yelling at clouds. But a deeper fear lingered too, the fear of becoming a burden, of losing the sharp edge that made me valuable. I'd poured my life into this work, often at the expense of, well, pretty much everything else. This was my identity, my legacy. The axe fell on a Tuesday, predictably, like a well-timed PR announcement. Brittany called me into her glass-walled office, all sleek minimalism and potted succulents. She sat across from me, radiating an aura of detached professionalism, as if she were firing a faulty vending machine. "Mac," she began, her voice smooth as silk, "we're restructuring, streamlining, moving towards a lean, data-driven model. We appreciate your years of service, but your role no longer aligns with our strategic imperatives." My role? I was the guy who saved their biggest clients from utter ruin. I was the guy who helped the founder navigate an SEC investigation 20 years ago. I was the guy who once talked a CEO out of releasing a press statement that would have probably landed him in jail. Redundant? I wanted to laugh, but my throat felt like sandpaper. It was the kind of condescending dismissal that makes you want to quote Mike Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. She slid a severance package across the table. A decent chunk of change, enough to tide me over, but it felt like a polite kick out the door. "We'll need your login credentials for all client platforms, your contacts list." She paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, "and your black book." My black book? The one with handwritten notes, cross-references, and personal insights no digital database could ever replicate. "That stays with me," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. Her perfect eyebrows barely twitched. "It's company property, Mac." "It's my intellectual property," I retorted, borrowing a phrase Emma from that one AI story might have used, and a quiet smile played on my lips. "Built on my time, My dime, my experience. It's a personal tool, not a firm asset. She pursed her lips, annoyed, but didn't push it. She just wanted me gone. We wish you the best, Mac, she concluded, gesturing towards the door, already done with me. I walked out of that office, past the young analysts glued to their screens, past the open-plan spaces buzzing with meaningless corporate jargon, and out into the chaotic symphony of downtown Los Angeles. The sunshine felt like a spotlight, exposing the raw wound of dismissal. I didn't feel anger, not yet. Just a profound sense of weary amusement. They had no idea what they just unleashed. They thought they'd cut the fat, when in reality, they just lobotomized their own crisis response unit. As Sun Tzu also wisely observed, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Brittany knew neither. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. I cleaned out my apartment, a monument to decades of takeout menus and half-finished novels. I caught up on sleep, watched some old Dodgers games, and let the silence settle. My phone was eerily quiet. No frantic calls, no urgent texts. The firm was chugging along, oblivious. My biggest fear, being forgotten, becoming irrelevant, gnawed at me. Was Brittany right? Was I just an outdated relic? Then I remembered the words of Serena Williams. I don't like to lose at anything, yet I've grown most not from victories, but from setbacks. This wasn't a loss. It was a setback, a forced regroup. The calm before the storm lasted precisely 5 days. It was late Friday evening when my old flip phone, a relic I kept for its reliability and lack of digital traceability, buzzed. It was Mr. Henderson, CEO of Apex Dynamics, Sterling and Associates' most lucrative and notoriously high-maintenance client. His voice was a strained whisper. "Mac, is that really you? Thank God. We've got a situation. A bad one." My pulse quickened. I'd managed Apex's PR for 2 decades, from their first product recall to a nasty embezzlement scandal. I knew Henderson's panic voice. "Talk to me, Mr. H," I said, already sketching out a mental flow chart. He then laid out a nightmare scenario. A whistleblower had just leaked thousands of internal documents, exposing a decade-long pattern of environmental violations, shady lobbying, and, worst of all, direct evidence that Apex had knowingly downplayed a toxic spill that impacted a minority community. The story was about to break on the New York Times homepage. "We tried calling Brittany," Henderson stammered, "but her people are just saying we're formulating a data-driven response strategy. It's boilerplate, Mac. The Times wants a comment by midnight, and I can't even get a human on the phone." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just bad, this was reputation-ending, potentially criminal. It was the kind of crisis that made you want to quote Bruce Springsteen, "When the sh*T hits the fan, you'll know who your friends are." Henderson was a friend, or at least, a very profitable client. "Mr. H," I said, "I don't work for Sterling and Associates anymore." I was. Restructured. A pause. "You're kidding me. That little data witch fired you?" Henderson's voice was full of disbelief. "Mac, you're the only one who can fix this. Name your price. Name your terms. Just, please." This was it. The moment of truth. The universe, with its cosmic sense of irony, had delivered Brittany Sterling a crisis tailor-made to expose her hubris. My gut, finely tuned over decades of dealing with emergencies, told me this was my chance not just for vindication, but to reaffirm the irreplaceable value of human expertise. "I'll call you back in 10, I said, my mind already racing, pulling contacts from the mental Rolodex that Brittany couldn't touch. The next call was to an old colleague, a grizzled investigative reporter at the Times I'd worked with and sometimes against for years. "Hey, Jimmy," I said, "heard you guys might be working on a little something about Apex Dynamics?" Jimmy chuckled. "Mac, you still got ears everywhere, huh? Yeah, it's a doozy. Drops at midnight. What if I could get you a better story?" I proposed, my mind already 5 steps ahead. Something bigger. Something about corporate ethics and the dangers of relying on algorithms when human accountability is needed. I didn't reveal everything, just enough to pique his interest. "I'm listening," Jimmy said, a flicker of the old professional curiosity in his voice. This wasn't just about saving Apex, it was about dismantling Brittany's gospel. I called Henderson back. Okay, Mr. H. Here are my terms. First, you retain me directly as an independent consultant. My fee will be substantial. Second, I get full autonomy. No interference from Sterling and Associates. If Brittany or anyone from her team so much as breathes on my strategy, I walk. Third, by Monday morning, I want a public acknowledgement from Apex that your previous PR firm failed to adequately address this crisis, and that I was brought in to mitigate it. No sugarcoating, just the facts. Henderson didn't even flinch at the price. Done. Whatever it takes, Mac. Good, I said. Because this isn't going to be pretty, but it's going to work. The adrenaline hummed through me, a familiar, intoxicating rush. My self-irony whispered, looks like the old dog still has a few tricks left. Mac? My phone buzzed, not with a call, but a series of frantic texts from Sterling and Associates' legal team. They'd figured out Apex was bypassing them. Max, the company's top lawyer, a perpetually stressed man I actually respected, called me. Mac, what the hell is going on? Brittany's having a meltdown. Apex is going direct to you? That's a breach of contract. Read the fine print, Max, I said calmly. Apex's contract allows for direct consultation in extreme circumstances if the primary firm is deemed unresponsive. And Brittany's data-driven strategy was, shall we say, unresponsive. A defeated sigh. She fired you, didn't she? Indeed, I replied, a hint of satisfaction in my voice. And now she's learning the hard way what happens when you replace a seasoned quarterback with a spreadsheet. It was a subtle nod to Tom Brady, proving that experience and game cinch trump raw metrics. I spent the rest of Friday night and all of Saturday working the phones like a madman. I called every single contact in my black book relevant to environmental issues, community leaders, even a few shady fixers who owed me favors. I orchestrated a two-pronged strategy, a rapid response team to get ahead of the Times story with an honest, albeit painful, initial statement from Apex, taking immediate responsibility, promising full cooperation with authorities, announcing a massive remediation fund. Simultaneously, I arranged for key community leaders to issue statements acknowledging Apex's new commitment to transparency and remediation, effectively defusing the narrative before it could fully explode. I even managed to get a prominent environmental activist, a woman I'd once helped clear her name in a trumped-up charge, to agree to a mediated dialogue with Apex's new leadership. This is about building bridges, not burning them, I told her. Trust is earned, not algorithmically generated. It was like orchestrating a symphony of damage control, each note perfectly placed. Meanwhile, Brittany's data-driven response at Sterling and Associates was, predictably, a spectacular failure. She'd ordered her team to analyze the whistleblower's data for sentiment analysis and media trend prediction, completely missing the human element of outrage and trust. Their proposed press release, which I got a leaked copy of, was a sterile, defensive piece of corporate jargon, essentially blaming the whistleblower and downplaying the environmental impact. It was the equivalent of trying to put out a bonfire with a squirt gun. The internal chaos at Sterling was palpable, even from my detached vantage point. Emails flew around, meetings were called, fingers were pointed. The young hotshots, who'd so eagerly embraced Brittany's vision, now looked like deer in headlights. They lacked the fundamental understanding of how to actually talk to people in a crisis, how to listen, how to empathize. They were great at statistics, terrible at humanity. The Times story hit at midnight, just as planned. It was devastating, detailing the long history of Apex's malfeasance. But simultaneously, Apex released its meticulously crafted counterstatement, acknowledging culpability, detailing the remediation plan, and most importantly, expressing deep regret for the impacted community. Then came the statements from the community leaders, carefully vetted and delivered, expressing cautious optimism about Apex's new approach and willingness to engage. The media narrative, instead of spiraling into outright condemnation, splintered. Some still hammered Apex, but others acknowledged the immediate, decisive steps being taken. It was a masterclass in crisis deflection, a delicate balance of admission and mitigation. It was a win, a hard-fought, ugly win, but a win nonetheless. As Coach Phil Jackson often said about basketball, the most important thing is to try and inspire people so that they can be great in whatever they want to do. I wasn't just fixing a PR crisis, I was inspiring a client to actually do the right thing. Monday morning, I walked into the Sterling and Associates lobby, not as an employee, but as a highly paid, independent consultant requested directly by their biggest client. The receptionist, a sweet young woman named Chloe, looked startled. "Mr. Riley?" I thought. I smiled. "Turns out some problems still need the human touch, Chloe." She just blinked. I took the elevator to the executive floor. Brittany Sterling was in the conference room, her face a mask of exhaustion and barely contained rage. She looked like someone who just lost a chess match to a pigeon. Her sleek pantsuit looked rumpled, her usually immaculate bob slightly disheveled. "Mac," she said, her voice devoid of its usual crispness, "Henderson's demanding your full oversight on this. This is irregular." I simply nodded. "Irregularity is my specialty, Brittany. Just like crisis management is yours, apparently." A pause. "The board's furious. We almost lost Apex." "Almost," I corrected. "Because some problems can't be solved with an algorithm or a pie chart. They need a person. A person who knows how to talk, how to listen, and who to call at 3 a.m. The subsequent days were a blur of high-stakes meetings. Brittany tried to reassert control, to inject her data-driven insights, but the board, now acutely aware of her monumental failure, consistently deferred to me. I worked with Apex, guiding them through the fallout, orchestrating town halls where Henderson himself faced the community, ensuring every promise was kept. It was grueling, emotionally draining work, but immensely satisfying. It was a reminder that in a world obsessed with speed and data, genuine human connection still held immense power. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy, Martin Luther King Jr. once said. I was standing firm. Brittany's restructuring eventually came full circle. Within weeks, she was quietly transitioned out of Sterling and Associates, a casualty of her own hubris and my stubborn insistence on human value. I never gloated, never explicitly asked for her removal. My vindication came in the form of a new contract from Sterling and Associates, Special Advisor, Crisis and Strategic Communications. It was a title that came with unprecedented autonomy, a massive salary, and the implicit understanding that I was the firewall. I got to define my own role, build a new team focused on my principles of human-centric crisis management, and ensure that no other Mac would be dismissed for being redundant again. The old guard had won, but not through resistance, through indispensable performance. Months later, I was still at Sterling, but now on my terms. I was mentoring young associates, teaching them the art of active listening, the nuances of a well-placed phone call, the importance of trust. You can't Google experience, I'd tell them, and you can't algorithmically generate a relationship built on trust. I even started keeping a small, battered notebook with their names in it, for when they needed my counsel, a spiritual successor to my black book. My old fear of obsolescence had dissipated, replaced by the quiet confidence of relevance. I wasn't just a fixer, I was a teacher, a guardian of the old ways that still mattered. The firm was slowly changing, not by wholesale disruption, but by adapting, realizing that the human element wasn't a bug, but a feature. My name was still Mac, the fix-it guy. But now, everyone knew I was the one you called when all else failed. And sometimes, that's all the power you need.